And the assistant came and said, Mayra, we're missing the head. He's not listening. He's sleeping. I don't know what else to do. The young woman at 19 years of age got literally 2 abortions done in less than an hour. They aspirated her, scraped her twice, and never mentioned anything to her. Like, same thing on the chart. So he falsified charts all the time. Last week, when you were not in your office, we found narcotics in your desk. You're fired. No, I was like, but I wasn't even in my office. I started defending myself until I realized this was a setup. My supervisor drops in this huge binder and a bunch of materials, and she's like, okay, I need you to start reading this because we will implement this at every center, hopefully in the next couple of years. And then as I start reading, it's the hormonization of people and children to turn them transgender. But it was 2011 when we started changing the paperwork where we don't ask, is this a well woman exam? No, because we cannot assume it was a woman. It's a wellness exam. And I'm talking about the year 2004, 2005. I was already telling children, you don't need your parental permission to come see me. You don't need your parents' permission to get condoms, to get birth control. You can come see me. They don't even have to know. We won't tell them. And teaching women, lie to your husbands, hide it from your husbands. And same thing, see male patients saying like, you don't have to share your information with no one, right? You start dividing the families.
Welcome to the Teen Rockstar Entrepreneur Podcast. I'm Naomi Nye, your host and guide on this electrifying journey where we dive deep into the realms of education, parenting, mindset, entrepreneurship, and the pursuit of passion. Join me and a lineup of incredible guests as we unravel the secrets to conquering challenges in every facet of life. Together, we'll explore how you and your family can not only face obstacles head on, but also emerge stronger, wiser, and ready to unleash your true potential. This is the Teen Rockstar Entrepreneur Podcast, where we rock the world with passion, purpose, and unstoppable entrepreneurial spirit. Welcome to the Teen Rockstar Entrepreneur Podcast. Today, we're going to talk about something that I find very necessary. And there's some interesting facts that I want to share with you because a lot of people are not aware. Many people are not aware that Bill Gates' father, William H. Gates, played a big role in the founding of Planned Parenthood. He served on the board for many years. The Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation have given millions of dollars to the International Planned Parenthood Federation. And why is this important? It's important because there seems to be a concerted effort to sexualize our children. And I say this with certainty because Planned Parenthood has taken over the comprehensive sexual education in our schools. In their PDF toolkit, which I will be including some images for you to see, they promote commercial sex work. They say that youth are entitled to pleasure no matter what age. Their sex ed videos, which are in thousands of our schools, seen by millions of our children, discuss topics like fingering, rimming, anal sex, masturbation, and mutual masturbation. They are installing school-based clinics, school-based health centers, live action undercover.
How old?
15.
15. Okay.
Have you guys ever went to a sex shop together?
People have different types of fetishes. Sex, dominatrix stuff. It's very popular.
The dominatrix.
Okay. Some people like pain with sex. With the handcuffs in the room.
Using toys, handcuffs, some whipping or, some asphyxiation.
Some people like being spanked or hit.
Oh, really?
Or whipped.
You can gag them, whip them.
Get spanked with the whip.
Welts across the back.
And maybe some blood.
Patients will sometimes come in with rope burns or markings on their breasts from clamps. And again, if it's consensual,
It's okay.
it's okay.
Bondage type thing.
If you're gagged or something,
You're tied to a bed or tied to a tree. It just depends what type of pain you can take. It'll feel good too.
Where they are providing cross-sex hormones with no safeguarding. They are providing contraceptives, COVID vaccines, and they are even starting their own sex ed summer camps. This is a Planned Parenthood employee talking about their sex ed camps that are available for grades 3 and above.
We'll also be talking about condoms and dental dams and tools that people can use to actually act as the barrier between the bodies. Absolutely. in that week before camp, we can definitely like bring some of the tools that like our campers will get to see and actually like play with and experience. We're planning on bringing all of the different like contraceptive methods and a lot of the tools that are used for preventing sexually transmitted infections, as well as puberty tools, in person for campers to actually touch and play with and like demystify in a way as well.
So to have this very necessary conversation, I am accompanied today by Mayra Rodriguez, a former Planned Parenthood director and whistleblower. Mayra, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. What an important conversation, right? I worked for them for 17 years and I just heard you. And even myself, I'm like, whoa, how do we get here? How have we allowed Planned Parenthood to take over our children?
Yes. And I think that parents are not aware because these programs are being infiltrated in our school system. And as a matter of fact, last week I saw that they're even, when we have school book fairs in schools, well, now Planned Parenthood is renting booths in our schools and they are showing condoms, displaying condoms, a whole bunch of LGBT material, transsexual material, and basically they're even showing it to children as young as in first grade. And so we're being exposed to this, and we already know how the human brain works and how programming and patterns work. Basically, to install a belief in someone, you just have to repeat it several times, actually. And we're not having it being repeated to us a dozen or 24 times. We are being bombarded with this 100 times a day. And the purpose to me seems that they want to normalize this behavior. And so parents need to be aware so that they can take precautions. And if necessary, which is what I want to talk to you about, and what we all need to do, is to start taking a stand. Because if we don't, look at where we are today. I can't even imagine where we're going to be in a year from now. So Mayra, I want you to walk us through your story. How is it that you started in Planned Parenthood, and what are the things that you started to see?
Well, like many people, and you will hear this, I was just talking to someone yesterday, and I said, even Margaret Sanger, one of the founders of Planned Parenthood, right? Like the woman who invented all this evilness, right? Even Margaret Sanger started her movement by wanting to help women, right? Which is the majority of us that have worked for Planned Parenthood. I'm not going to say all of us, but the majority. When I moved to the United States, just as a child at 18 years of age, right? I still call myself a child because when you're 18, you're still a kid, right?
Yes.
I went to high school here. I did some college credits. My friend worked for Planned Parenthood. I knew little about Planned Parenthood, except that they help women, right? My friend worked on the non-abortion side. She used to share with me what they do, birth control, STDs, coming from Mexico City. That was a positive thing for me, right? My mother was a social worker in Mexico City in one of the biggest hospitals in the city. And I grew up listening to all the women's issues and problems that they have. So obviously I saw birth control as a good positive thing. I saw this reproductive justice as a positive thing. I wanted to help women. So when my friend said, hey, they're hiring, they want bilingual people, why don't you come work for them? And then you'll have weekends off, you'll spend more time with your kids. I had just had my baby girl and I was working in a restaurant, so I didn't have the holidays. I didn't have a 9 to 5 job, so I was gonna miss her first Christmas and stuff like that. And she said, if you work here, you'll have holidays off. And yeah, so by the year 2000, I went and applied for a job at the end of the 2000. And I remember they asked me, first I saw people on the sidewalk praying. They're like, don't go in there. And I was like, okay, that's weird. So I went inside and I asked them what's going on with the people on the sidewalk. And the HR director, the human resources person said, well, they're not in agreement to everything we do. So by the way, what do you think about abortion, right? It was like the first top question she asked on that interview. And I said, well, I wouldn't have one, born and raised Catholic from Mexico. I wouldn't have one, but if someone else does, that's not my business. That's not me. It's their body and their choice, which is how majority of people answer today. Even pro-life people, even Christian people answer that way, right? Like, it's not my problem. Like, if they want an abortion, they can have their abortion. And I wouldn't have one. I wouldn't kill my own children, right? So she liked that answer and she gave me a job. She explained to me that they were looking for bilingual people because they were attracting the Hispanic community, which to me sounded like a jackpot. I wanted to help women. And if that woman was my community, my people, what else could I ask for? Right? Like the fact that when we're immigrants in another country, we find that sisterhood, that brotherhood with our people that speak the same language. And if I can help them, then that would be like a plus to me. So with that, I quickly asked, but I won't be doing abortions, right? And she said, no, you were hired for the other side. So the way I explained it is there was door A, abortion, door B, birth control. I was hired for door B, which is the birth control, the well woman exams, the pap smears, the STDs, which so far so good. A lot of people were happy that Planned Parenthood provided that sex education, those services, right? And the mission of Planned Parenthood started with that, but you mentioned it yourself. Look how it has driven them, right? Look how it has taken them. It has taken them from wanting rare abortions in very difficult occasions to save the life of a mother to now on demand up to 9 months, proudly of them, right? And those are the things that I start seeing. I'm not gonna lie to you, I worked for them for 17 years, and most people are like, how could you be there? I was very passionate about preventive. You know, my friend, I really thought by working on the birth control side, I was doing my part preventing abortion, right? I used to argue with people on the sidewalk, be like, I prevent more abortions than you do on the sidewalk because I give them the pill, I give them the shot, I give them my IUDs, right? And thanks to me, thanks to us, you know, thanks to the 90% of the services Planned Parenthood does, we prevent abortions. But my whole view changed. A lot of the things that I did, my friend, was we're talking about the year 2001, right? Hispanics are still coming from countries where abortion is not even a topic. They don't even talk about it. It's not like today that they're legalizing one after the other. So we're talking about a time when Hispanic women that moved to this country were still very attached to having their children, not even thinking about abortion as an option, right? So it all started by they don't have to tell them. And then, my friend, we move on to the children. Go to the schools, go to the 8th graders, 9th graders, 7th graders, show them how to put a condom on a banana, right? I remember the first couple times they sent me to highly Hispanic schools. So the way I tell people is this: Planned Parenthood works in a very smart way. They hire people from the community, so then people will see themselves, right? Like,
Exactly.
I'm Hispanic, I want to speak to Hispanic women. And Margaret Sanger did this, remember?
Yes.
When she founded Planned Parenthood in 1938, she started going into the Black churches and speaking to the Black pastors and getting Black women to help her at these clinics where she will attend only Black people, right? Why? Because when you see someone that looks like you, that speaks your language, you feel more comfortable and you become more trustworthy of them, right? And they get more, they believe you. They're like, it's my people. She wouldn't lie to me. She wouldn't hurt me, right?
Exactly.
So obviously sending someone that looks Hispanic, someone that looks like their relatives in school, right? Like the kid will like find me similar to their aunts, their mothers,
Exactly.
right? Their family. So I become a trust source for them. And then I tell them, you know, you can come see me after school. So I remember the first couple of times I mentioned abstinence, right? Because I strongly believe in abstinence
Yes.
with my children, with my own life, like with my patients. I strongly believe abstinence was still the key word. And right. And I was actually reprimanded from not for saying abstinence. So I stopped saying abstinence.
Isn't that interesting? I feel that it's like we were speaking earlier, it's like a brainwashing, a programming. Oh, so they're allowed to promote one thing, oh, but they don't want to promote abstinence because they have a purpose. And when you spoke of Margaret Sanger, you know, people are not aware that she was a big eugenist. And if you understand eugenics and you understand what a lot of these transhumanists believe, is they believe there are too many people on the planet. And it's interesting how, you know, you said that she would go and speak to Black priests and she would go to the Black communities because they are basically targeting the Black and Latin communities. That's why when you look at the Planned Parenthood map of the United States, you'll see where they're located. And it's very interesting to see that that is the communities that they are majorly in. When they started telling you all these things, did a little bell start going off eventually where you were like, this is weird? This doesn't seem right. When did you start like thinking maybe it's not such a good thing what we're doing?
Well, actually, no, it was starting to groom and grow on me, right? To the point that I strongly believe what we were doing. I strongly believe the sex education we were providing in schools. I strongly believe the liberation of my Hispanic women from the kitchen, right? Like, I'm gonna liberate them all. They're not gonna be here to just have children. They're gonna be here to be free women who decide over their bodies, right? Like, they have full autonomy of their bodies, right? Like, all these feminist message, to the point that, something I hardly ever speak on is how.
That's very interesting. And this is what I want to make a point to the listeners, to the families, because this is what happens to us. This is what programming is. And we don't realize that we're in an environment, we are going to take the characteristics of that environment. And the brain is very malleable. What you are around and what you listen to the most and you are exposed to the most are the ideas that you're going to take as a part of your own. This is why I find it so alarming and why I think that we need to start speaking out, because we don't realize there's basically, I don't know if you've heard of the overtone window. This is a system that the media uses when they want to present you with something that either you're going to be disgusted with. And so they put you through a process where they expose you to this content. And then when you watch the window, it gets to a point where you accept it. You might not agree with it, but you accept it. Like when you started in the beginning, you were talking about family. I wouldn't tell my kids this. I wouldn't do that. But then later on, you're like, yeah, I want to empower women and my body, my choice, because it all sounds good. It all sounds liberating. It all sounds empowering to women. But when we start seeing the effects of it, because their plan is so insidious that we can't even believe it. But we are now seeing the effects of this insidious nature. And it is basically what you said. It is to break the family unit. It is to sexualize our youth and basically to stop reproduction. The Planned Parenthood plan described by the director of sex education in Iowa.
One of the first things that she told me was that I was to look at the Parenthood, and I was mentored by the director of sex education of the greater Austin area Planned Parenthood on how to share this sex education message with children. And one of the first things that she told me was that I was to look at these young kids as young as in middle school. She even mentioned some girls coming in as young as 10. And she said, you need to see them and realize that they are sexually active. And if they haven't, they will be. And it's our job as sex educators to teach them about all forms of sexuality to ensure that they're reducing their risk. And so their goal really is not to ever their philosophy and their belief about our children is highly sexualized. They believe that abstinence is laughable. They see parents as a barrier to service because they know parents are going to protect them. And that's actually something that they told me. They wanted to keep parents out of the picture. So when we're talking about the breakdown of family, it begins with sex education. You know, I was listening also to your previous people on your show just now talking about how abortion is the breakdown of the family. Absolutely. It all begins with sex education. It's about peace.
So continue telling me your process.
Yeah, at the same time, I was getting empowered as a Latina, as a Hispanic, as an immigrant living the American dream. I became the assistant director. I became the training coordinator. I became the director of the first Title X center, which is the center that helps people with low income, right? With our tax money, by the way. It's not with Planned Parenthood money, but our tax money given to Planned Parenthood, where we provide all these free services or low-cost services to women in low-income communities. And then I became the director of the second center. Right now, I'm managing 2 centers. I feel empowered. I mean, I'm an immigrant. I'm the director of 2 Planned Parenthood centers. I get an Employee of the Year award. Here I am growing within the company, seeing myself as one day being on the top administration office, right? In some top role for Planned Parenthood. And then an award came with a promotion that I was not expecting, nor did I want it. Because remember, if you just heard my story, I managed to stay away from the abortion side for 16 years by growing into the preventive care side. And then once I get this award, I'm offered, Mayra, we need you to be the director of the abortion facility too. And I was like, no, thank you. And they were like, well, Trump's gonna defund us and we'll close down clinics. We cannot guarantee you'll still have a job. So, at that moment, it's my children and I. What am I gonna do? I'm an immigrant. Where am I gonna go, right? So what do I do, right? Because that's another thing. They're so giving to the immigrant community. We don't care about your immigration status. We don't care how you get to this country. Come to us, right? Like, we'll take care of you, right? Here, I remember that when tough immigration laws start passing in Arizona, I was to go into the communities and tell them, if you come for an abortion, we won't call ICE on you. You will not be deported. But if you continue your pregnancy and end up giving birth, the hospital may call ICE on you. Women are going to be like, I don't want to get deported for having a baby. But this is how they treat the community. We're here to support you. We're here to make your life easy. For 16 years, my friend, I sold the idea that abortion was necessary, that abortion was a good thing, that abortion was safe, and that abortion will just erase your problems and tomorrow you'll wake up and like nothing, move on with your life and keep being that empowered woman that you want to be, right? It's the solution of all the social problems, emotional problems, and economic problems. But then I become the director of the abortion facility. I realized that what I had been doing was selling lies. The lies that were fed to me, I was giving them to other women. What do I mean by that? I start seeing the complications. The complications daily, yes, complications that are mentioned in this form that most patients read, but complications that are told to women rarely happen. I was even trained to say that, right? Throughout the years when I was selling the abortion idea to these women that came to my clinic for pregnancy test, I was like, all these complications rarely happen. We have to put them in there because the FDA requires that, right? But they rarely happen. When I became the director, I realized that these complications were happening daily. That daily a woman left perforated in the center. And what I mean by that is the abortion happens there's 3 ways of having an abortion done, right? The medical abortion, which is the abortion pill. It's a pill that women take that stops feeding the baby blood. So then it dies overnight. And then these women take another set of pills and literally expose their baby out. They go through excruciating pain. I was trained to tell them it's like a period. It'll be a blood clot. And then as a director here, I'm getting phone calls in the night of women saying like, so it's not a blood clot. I can see a baby. So what do I do with it? And here you are telling them, flush it down the toilet and don't look. Can you imagine the trauma of those women? Then phone calls of, I'm in excruciating pain. I think I'm gonna die. Like this is like, you told me it'll be like a period, but I'm in so much pain that I'm gonna die. Put your feet up, take ibuprofen, use a heating pad. You will be okay. Call us back in the morning. Things like that. Right? Check, make sure you don't have a fever. And that's it, right? Just treat them like their symptoms are nothing. It's just them because the majority of women do this in a very easy way. I mean, 1 in 4 women do abortions every day. So you'll be okay. Then the other 2 types of abortion are the dismemberment of babies and a vacuum aspiration. So these instruments are very sharp. And when the abortionists, we're not calling them doctors, the abortionists, go in, they can't really see what they're doing. So they perforate these women in organs like their uterus or other organs, and they don't even notice sometimes, right? And if they notice, they just treat it like a heavy bleeding. So we're getting a lot of reports from the emergency room that women were getting perforated, and the medical director who was the abortionist keep dismissing them. I'll take care of them. Don't you worry about it. I keep telling my supervisor, hey, I'm seeing this every day. Like, I thought it was rare. So is this like an isolated thing? Is this abortionist? What's going on? Right? And then the overseeing of rules and regulations, the not following the laws in the state of Arizona, disregarding what the law said and how to proceed on that, right? Not reporting those complications. So obviously, when we see the statistics, they don't match what you hear from abortion workers because they don't report it. The way I explain it to people is, can you imagine that the restaurant owner gets to report his complications in the restaurant? He's the one who says, hey, I left the refrigerator open and the meat inside raised the temperature to this much. He wouldn't report that, right?
Exactly.
My husband and I own a trucking company, and I always tell people, imagine that my husband gets to report his accident. Hey, while I was driving today, I actually hit a pole. They wouldn't do that.
No.
Someone else manages those reports. Someone else manages to oversee. Here, they report their own complications. They oversee themselves. I have never seen an industry that does that except the abortion industry, which to me was like, are you kidding me?
Yeah, it's many government facilities are run like that. That's why we're having so many problems because they report their own incidents. So like you said, of course they're not going to do it because it's not in their interest. I'm glad that you're mentioning about the complications and everything that they're doing because parents do need to know. And there is something now going on in our society where they are telling children that they don't have to tell their parents anything about their sexuality, anything about their lives. And this is a very big problem because the government wants to take the role of the parent. We are already seeing the effects. We are seeing a youth that is rising in the levels of mental illness like we've never seen before. 1 in 4 girls have suicidal ideation. Okay, there are several that try suicide. There are many who are committing suicide. When it comes to abortions, there are 75 million abortions in the United States, and that includes teenagers, and they are having complications. And not only that, like you said, when we talk about abortions, why are abortions being promoted? We are not taking them seriously and we are talking about a human life. Before it was that you would have an abortion up to 3 months. Now we're seeing abortion terms up to 9 months and they're trying to lie to us and tell us that it's not a baby, that a fetus is not a baby, when we know that it's a baby and we know that it feels pain. It looks like a baby. It is a baby. It feels pain and it is alive. And so we are dismissing these things and we're taking them as they're irrelevant. They're not important. But this is why we're seeing society the way it is today. I mean, why with so many advancements, right? We have never had such little poverty. And when we're speaking of the United States, we are all so comfortable compared to other parts of the world. So why are we suffering so much with mental illness? I think all of this has a big part in what's going on in our society. What were your experiences when it came to going to the schools and talking to youth?
Well, the times that I was working for them, the government was still not on board with them, right? We had a harder time getting into the schools, not like today. Today, we are like the conservative side is not allowed to go into the schools. Like the
Exactly.
pro-life side is not allowed to go into schools, but Planned Parenthood has open doors to all their schools, right? In my time, it wasn't at this open door. So we will gather the kids in their community center, right? We will talk to the school and see if the parents were okay with it. We can meet like down the street in a community center, a church that will allow us to borrow their little salon or the little classrooms or a place, the library, a place where we can gather them and give this information. I remember that I was even sent to speak to this, that Arizona hosts a lot of the baseball camps because we have nice weather in the spring, right? Not in the summer, but in the spring. So they recruit all these young kids from Puerto Rico, Venezuela, Dominican Republic, all these countries that they have great sports baseball players.
Yes.
And they used to bring me to talk to these young kids as young as 14 about sex education and abortion and condoms and discuss their sexuality. And like I said, same thing what you just said. And I'm talking about the year 2004, 2005. I was already telling children, you don't need your parental permission to come see me. You don't need your parents' permission to get condoms, to get birth control. You can come see me. They don't even have to know. We won't tell them, right? So, I raise my children as telling them, if someone says that, run and tell me, because that's wrong. But here I was, easily uncomfortable telling other children that they can come to me, that we won't even call their parents, right? So little did I know that they were already, like you said, they were already starting to cause this division, telling children, don't share with your parents, don't share with anyone, right? I used to go to the Pride festivals and during the month of June and set up a table. And I remember my supervisor will be like, bring a bunch of HIV quick tests because that's our clientele, right? They knew that the gay community, the LGBT community was big for us because we will give them free HIV testing and coupons for them to come see us. And during my time there, it's when they started treating transgender, right? I remember changing the paperwork where it was like, well, because we're going to start, and this is the year 2011. A lot of people don't even think that it goes this far, but it was 2011. We started changing the paperwork where we don't ask, is this a well woman exam? No, because we cannot assume it was a woman. It's a wellness exam, right? And then on the wellness exam, instead of saying like, were you born a male or no, do you have testicles? Like removing all these questions on the exam and starting to treat them like if they were women and men into women into like if they were men, do you have a vagina? But not call anyone man or female. Like Planned Parenthood started in the year 2011, right? And promoting these transgender services. And I remember just being the training coordinator, my supervisor drops in this huge binder and a bunch of materials. And she's like, okay, I need you to start reading this because we will implement this at every center, hopefully in the next couple of years. And I was like, what is this? And then as I start reading, it's the harmonization of people and children to turn them transgender, right? And I get shocked by what's going on here, right? But it was put on hold because it was too soon for Arizona. It started already in California. It was going on in New York, but Arizona was too soon for it. People were not ready, right? The current government sitting back then was not going to allow us to do this. So they put it on hold. And in a way, I was like, phew, right? Because I did not agree with it, but this was my employer. And you see, what I tell people is what happens when you work there. And I know most people will be like, well, you could have just quit, but you're already so deep into it that I think people need to understand that when you're working inside this industry, when you're working in that movement, even when you see things that are wrong, you still make an excuse for them, right? Kind of like when you're in a violent relationship, kind of when you're in a marriage that is abusive, right? Like it's abusive, something's wrong, but you make excuses for the behaviors, right? You excuse the behaviors are like, well, how about the people that were born feeling like a woman? Well, they deserve a place to be at, right? How about the children? I mean, we can't stop kids from feeling like that they have to explore their sexuality. So there has to be someone to guide them, right?
Right, we make excuses. Yeah. Yeah, we make excuses. We all do that. It's human nature.
So, it's like the parents today, right? That they have been fooled by this movement of, it's my child. I need to accept it the way it was born. But no, that's not the way it was born, first of all, right? And you're causing more harm than love because love is telling truth, right? But we are in this world that says, no, love is love. You don't have to tell the truth if you love someone, right? Because again, we're making excuses for what we're seeing and what we're doing and then using the word love and even to the point of using Jesus, right? Using Jesus as, well, Jesus would have loved everyone no matter what. Yeah. Jesus would have loved them because and then they start, all of a sudden, all these people know a lot of biblical
Oh yeah.
passages about Jesus being so forgiving and forgiving everyone and everyone being treated as equal, right? And making excuses to the point that look at it, they created Catholics for choice. Like I used to call myself a Catholic for choice. I was so wrong when I was at that. I strongly believe I could be Catholic and pro-abortion for other people, by the way, not to kill my own children,
Right.
not to allow my daughter to have an abortion, not to allow my son to even take a woman for an abortion, but it's okay for other women to kill their children because Jesus would have done that. Jesus would have not judged anyone and just be there for them. That's the excuses you make.
Yes, it is excuses we make, but when you think about it in reality, it's just things we tell ourselves to be able to appease ourselves because deep down inside we are feeling guilty. We know it's wrong. And we all do this, or other times because of fear, because we're afraid of taking the big leap. We're afraid of losing something. Like, for example, you're a single mom at that point, you lose your job. How do you support your family? There's so many things that go on in our mind, or you're afraid to leave your husband because you're a coward, or because you don't know what to do. You have no other way of sustaining yourself. There's so many reasons, right, that we do this, or psychological reasons, our childhoods, whatever it is. But the thing that I want to make a point is that we are at the point in history where we can't do that anymore. We all have to actively say, no, I don't care what it is. At this point, I don't even care if I have to go to jail because we are losing our society as we speak. We are losing our
And that's
youth.
actually what happened to me, Naomi. I got to the point that I said I can't keep overlooking. I can't keep overlooking at his mistakes. I can't keep overlooking what he's doing in this clinic, what the way they're treating women. I have to say something. My coworkers used to tell me, you're gonna get fired. You need to stay quiet. Don't talk about him. Don't say anything. Don't complain. I said I can't do that. So I called my supervisor one day when the abortionist left the head of the baby inside the woman's 19-year-old. She was 14 weeks pregnant, and through the dismemberment of the baby, that's how abortions happen. They rip their baby parts. He left the head, and he had inserted an IUD, which is a T that prevents pregnancy from implanting. And the assistant came and said, Mayra, we're missing the head. He's not listening. He's leaving. I don't know what else to do. We argue. Finally, another ultrasound gets done. They found the baby head above the IUD inserted. That young woman at 19 years of age got literally 2 abortions done in less than an hour. They aspirated her, scraped her twice, and never mentioned anything to her. Like if everything had gone without complications. Same thing on the chart. So he falsified charts all the time. I laughed, called my supervisor, said, that's it. I will do something. You are not doing anything because I've been complaining about him and nothing gets done. I will call the health department. I will go to the federation, which is Planned Parenthood Federation of America. I will go to the medical board, but he will stop touching women. This will not happen again. So far right now, Naomi, I'm thinking this is an isolated thing that is just happening with this couple of abortionists that I'm overseeing, right? Like it's them, right? Like it's not the entire industry, just these 2 bad abortionists, right? So obviously my employer didn't like that. And I was not expecting this. I never thought that because I've been complaining about him, then they will come after me instead of him. I thought they cared no matter what. I thought they cared for women. So when I raise my concern, you will think that someone will be like, hey, Mayra, thank you very much for doing that. Let's fix this up because we don't want women in danger. But no, they said, okay, Mayra, you're fired. Like, just like that, you're fired. Last week, when you were not in your office, we found narcotics in your desk. You're fired. No, I was like, but I wasn't even in my office. I started defending myself until I realized this was a setup. They needed to accuse me of something that they thought, I wouldn't be able to defend myself because I wasn't there. They found narcotics. What am I going to do? It was my desk, right? So I left my job feeling very frustrated, feeling powerless, right? Feeling like, what am I going to do? Right? Afraid because I had just raised my voice and lost my job, right? What am I going to do? And with the help of the community in the pro-life movement in Arizona, we found my lawyer. And then you can imagine, I sit down with him in his office, I tell him this Mexican telenovela, right? Like this so popular that no one will believe, right? And he says, I believe you. We start a lawsuit against Planned Parenthood for wrongful termination under the Whistleblower Protection Act. And gratefully, by the mercy of God, I won in 2019. But the sad part is, my friend, that there's very rarely any lawsuits against Planned Parenthood that make it to trial, because they're very quick to dismiss their lawsuits. They're very quick to have their government on their side. And you remember the big case in California. Well, a journalist found all this proof of them selling baby parts, and it got dismissed very quickly by Kamala Harris, right? That was the Attorney General, and then later the Senator of California. And when after the journalist, instead of doing something about it, when all this information was uncovered, to the point that it's now that finally he's over that lawsuit.
Hey rock stars, that wraps up another electrifying episode of the Teen Rockstar Entrepreneur Podcast, where we dive deep into the journeys of incredible minds shaping their destinies in the world of business, solo, and entrepreneurship. Now, before you hit that pause button, I've got some exciting news for you. If you're ready to take control of your life, eliminate anxiety, insecurity, and fear, then look no further. Head over to the teenrockstarentrepreneur.org website to grab your very own copy of the comprehensive 140-page Designer Life Blueprint Teen Workbook. This workbook isn't just a guide, it's a roadmap to unleashing your true potential. Packed with insights, exercises, and strategies, it's your key to crafting the life you've always dreamed of. A life where challenges are conquered, dreams are pursued, and happiness is your companion. So what are you waiting for? Visit teenrockstarentrepreneur.org and kickstart your journey to a life of purpose, passion, and success. Stay inspired, stay motivated, and remember, your journey is just getting started. Until next time, keep rocking and rolling towards your dreams.